Hi, I'm Lauren and welcome to my craft room. Today I am hopping along with Team Tiny for our Thankful Hop. And I know that when you think of a Thankful Hop, you're expecting a lot of different Thanksgiving cards, which I'm sure you will see on this hop. But I was going through my stamps and I found my Golden Friend set from Ink Rubbed Stamps. And one of the sentiments on there is thank you for being a friend because, Golden Friends, if it gives you any idea of what this stamp set is inspired by. But I decided to use this stamp set as a thank you card rather than a Thanksgiving card. And here is my goldeny card. It's a shaker card, and I even use their cute little profiles as shrinky dinks to make additional little sequins for my shaker card. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you hop along using the hashtag in my title and my description, but let's get started on my card. To start my card, I'm going to cut my card base. I have this really pink paper from my card stash, and I'm cutting it down to an A2 top folding size card. I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure I have a nice crease. I'm also using this really cute tropical paper from my stash. It's from Stampin' Up! Several years ago. I've just been hoarding it and haven't been using it. And if you're familiar at all with the TV show, you know they live in Miami and they have beautiful tropical print furniture throughout their house, mostly pink, but I thought this was pretty and it would go really well with my card and my theme. And you can't have this type of card with golden girls without actually having gold, right? I mean, it's in the name. I know it means golden years, but we have to use gold. So I have this really pretty shimmery light gold, kind of more of a champagne, but light gold cardstock. And I was using my dies to figure out how I wanted to make a frame for the shaker part. I decided to use the inside scallops and trim it down to a rectangle and then round the corners with a very old corner rounder that I've had for who knows how long. And I'm trimming down my tropical paper to fit between my card base and the gold frame. So my card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. My tropical background is 4 by 5 1/4, and my gold frame is 3 3/4 by 5. So now I am going to trim my acetate that will be the front of my shaker card to be slightly smaller than my gold frame. And I did round the corners, so I will have to trim the corners of my acetate, as you'll see here in just a moment. I'm using some strong sticky paper to put that tropical paper onto my card base, and this is after I did apply some gold splatter using my gold silk. And now I'm going to adhere my acetate to my frame. I want to make sure it's secure, so I'm using some really strong double-sided sticky tape and I'm applying it all the way around the acetate paper. I want to make sure that it is going to stick really well, so after I pull the release and center it behind the frame, I'm using my bone folder to make sure that that is a nice, good seal. And once that's done, now I can work on building it up to create that shaker inside. So I'm using my foam tape and I'm doubling it up and trimming it in half so it fits nicely behind that frame. Now, the thing about shaker cards and acetate is that it is very staticky and your sequins will get stuck. So I'm using my embossing tool, which is also an anti-static tool, and I'm putting it all over my card base as well as the inside of my frame. Now, these are a sequence from a really old paper pumpkin mix, but you can definitely make your own using some gold, and I've got some iridescent and pinks, and the iridescent does have kind of a green look to it, so it fits really well with this pattern paper. And I want to make sure I have enough sequins, so as you saw, I did test and make sure that my frame would fit nicely over and there was plenty of sequins inside. So now I want to make my own little shaker bits using the Golden Girl profiles from the stamp set. So I'm putting all 4 onto a block and I have my Shrinky Dink paper. Now I would recommend using StazOn, but I don't have any black StazOn, and so I am going to use my Lawn Fawn Copic Friendly ink in jet black ink, and I'm stamping them twice. Now, because this isn't StazOn, it will smear, so you have to be a little careful until that ink dries. I'm going to trim them out, so I'm going to cut them all up into 8 individual little squares and then trim around the different profiles. Again, being very careful not to smear the ink. And now that these are all cut out, I'm going to show you the process of using my embossing heat gun to create these shrinky dinks a few times. I'm holding it with my tweezers against my glass mat, waiting for it to shrink down, and then using my acrylic block just to flatten it out and make sure that it is nice and flat to be in my shaker. I'm doing this again, and my glass mat does get warm, so just make sure that you are aware of that if you do that on a glass mat. And here we go, one more time, holding it down with my tweezers, bringing out my heat gun, squeezing it flat. And now I'm going to slow down just a bit so I can show you my little rose little shaker bit here. So you can see it has the perfect profile. It's just all nice and tiny and will be cute little shaker bits inside my shaker. So now I'm going to continue with finishing up all of those little bits, and now I'm going to place them inside my shaker. So I'm laying them with the scratchy side down. So when you stamp on there, there is a rougher surface. You want to make sure you're stamping on the rougher surface of the shrinky dink, and then making sure that side is down, pulling up some release tape and making sure my sequins are inside and it's nice and centered. And there we go, my shaker part is done. So now I'm stamping the sentiment, "Thank you for being a friend," and I originally wanted to emboss it in gold, but my gold powder just isn't detailed enough for this type of sentiment, so I'm just stamping it in black ink and using my embossing gun just to make sure that ink is dry before I trim it down. I'm using my paper trimmer to trim the sentiment. I'm going to have it be a banner across the card, and it's not perfectly centered, so I'm going to trim it again on the other side, but my paper is too thin, so what I like to do is just use a little sticky note to help me hold that in place. And because I was cutting off such a little bit, I will have to use my scissors here and just make sure it has a nice edge to the paper. So now I have that ready. I am going to use again that double-sided sticky tape because it is against the acetate, and I want to make sure it has a nice adhesion to my card base. So I'm going to lay that onto the back of the sentiment and use my bone folder, which I forgot to do on one, but that's okay, to make sure it has a really good seal. I'm using my grid on my glass mat to make sure my sentiment is centered onto the card. I'm going to open that up and use my scissors and align to the edge of the card to trim off the extra. And I'm going to make it look like a banner by trimming in towards the middle, about 1/8 of an inch in, and then cutting from the corners to make that banner look. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Now that's done, I really wanted to incorporate the profiles of the Golden Girls onto my card. And I originally thought it would be kind of fun to punch them out with this 1-inch hole punch. So I'm going to punch all 4 of these out, and I'm going to test it on my card layout to see how I like it. So I was thinking of layering them together and tucking it behind the banner a bit, just so that the profiles would stick out, but I felt like they looked too bulky. I didn't really like it. I thought it was too much white for this card. So then I thought, okay, let me try putting them into a set of 4, but then you can't even see all my shaker bits and the pretty pattern paper. But I didn't want to waste them, so I thought, okay, maybe on the inside, and I closed it, and I was like, no, I really want them on the outside. So I'm just going to trim them out. It was a cute idea to put them in the circles, but it was just too much white for the front of the card, and so I am going to trim each of the profiles out, and I'm leaving a bit of a chin on them all because I want it to look like a face. And now layering the 4 on, I think it looks so much better. There's not too much white, and it still has the faces on the front of the card. And I'm using that double-sided sticky tape again to make sure they have nice adhesion to my acetate. And I did that for all 4 faces. So now that those are done, I decide I want to add a little more bling. So I'm going to use 6 of the sequins, 3 on each side of the banner, and just lay them on around the banner there to add a little bit more sparkle to the card. Once I have the placement that I like, I'm using my jewel picker and some wet glue to glue all 6 of the sequins down. Let me pick up my mess here and I will show you my final card. I really like how it turned out. It's a little bit different than I know the theme of the hop, but it is still a thankful card because I am thankful for this person who will get this card for being my friend. I hope you enjoyed this shaker card and that you have a fun time hopping along. Thank you for all of the likes and comments and for subscribers who are visiting my channel. I hope you have a great day.